Hi there! So this is the first of a few tutorials on creating peer-to-peer chat rooms. I'm really excited about this topic. We're going to be using Simple Peer, and it's essentially a way to make WebRTC programming a lot more accessible, but also make it a lot more error-proof because it's really complicated to work with WebRTC. And also we would be using Node.js as a way to create our initial signaling server. We are also going to be using socket.io, Express, and we're integrating p5.js into all of it so that we can, in the next tutorial, create more unconventional, interesting experimental chat room. And at the end, we're going to use Browserify, another package to bundle up all the different dependencies that we have. So I will provide a link for the starter template here, the bone-to-bone template one. When you get to this URL, click on the menu here and click on Remix so that you make your own copy. Here, I'm going to go over the file structure just briefly. We have a public folder that contains like all of our like sort of like front end files. There's index, HTML file, and CSS. On the back end, we have a package.json file, which if you look under dependencies, it contains all of the different packages that we have inside of Glitch. So we got Express, we got socket.io, we got Simple Peer, Browserify, we got also socket.io client, and P5. The debug and the Lodash is optional. It's just a way to make coding a little more neater and organized, but it's really you use it out of personal preference and habit. And there's also the server.js file that deals with the server end of things, which you wouldn't be required to modify at all for the purpose of this tutorial. So what we're going to focus on is client.js. And I will briefly explain what's happening in this code. I'll do my best, as there's a lot of materials here. So the first part of client.js, you see from line 2 to line 3, there's something that's called the require module here. So the syntax is, it's essentially let or const, x equals require something, right? So we're requiring something and placing that into the variable. And in the case of this project, what we're requiring is the packages itself. So it's saying that, hey, for this file, we need to export these specific node modules. So over here, you would see, hey, we got a Simple Peer module. We also got a socket.io client module. And we can also see them. So if I go here and type console.log and type p2p, and if I go to show and to a new window, for this project, make very sure that you have your web console open at all time. You'll definitely need it. So I'm using Firefox right now. I'm gonna go up to the top menu, go to Tool, Web Div, and I'm gonna choose Web Console. Okay, there you go. So what we were just trying to print was this. So essentially, what's inside of this simple pair is this class pair right here. You can see all the different kind of like configuration details, and such. But it's neat to be able to see it sometimes to know, oh, this is exactly what I'm exporting. So I'm going to take this off now. And on line 4, there is a line called const socket.io.connect. And what that io.connect is doing is that it manually opens the socket. So for this project, we are relying on Node as our signaling server to make that initial connection where we exchange the ID. So socket plays a part in that to help us connect to Node, to the temporary central server. And we got a couple of variables here that's going to help us, just put things together later on. There are 2 variable, incoming message and outgoing message, that store our specific messages from us to the remote pair and vice versa. And here's our p5 function here. Okay, so I'm going to try something. I'm going to type console.log p5 is working. So, and I'm going to come back here and reload this page. And here, so we can see the message that we are connected to the signaling server, which is great news. But I don't see the message that p5 is working. And so this returned to what we were talking about before, about exporting the Node module. So a mistake that I have made is that I have not included p5 in here, right? So we can now type const p5 equal require p5 to export the p5 module with this page. And another thing that's worth noting is that because we're using p5 as a object, and we want it to be bundled up with Browserify, what that means is we need to change the way we write the function. So this is the syntax that we need to use instead. I'm going to delete this line and write module.export equals to new p5 function and opening curly bracket, and the next line needs to be, oh, actually I have too much parentheses here. Okay, so make sure the syntax is right. Next line needs to be this dot setup equals to function setup. So if this looks really weird to you, that's because it is weird. So essentially we need to write this, write p5 as an object in order for it to work within this context of using Browserify. I'm going to move my message UI and my debugging message up here. And I'm going to put a semicolon at the end of that curly bracket and add a closing parenthesis and a semicolon. And I'm going to add the draw in here and end with a semicolon. So you can see the syntax is quite different. I also have to add this dot draw equals to function draw. So essentially we have to convert all the different kinds of function that we would normally write inside of p5 into a object context and use this dot Okay, more on that later. So let's first check whether this little bit of code is working. Okay, so good news. It's hiding, but we can see that the p5 is working is back. So now the p5 function is being taken into account in Browserify, and we can start like thinking about placing everything within these contexts when we are working with the code. So in this example, we're going to use p5 as a kind of like wrapper for all the different codes we have, which means the next step I'm going to take is including all the different sort of function relating to socket.io and relating to simple pair. Let's see, I'm going to keep scrolling down. And right there, right before function message UI, I'm going to copy that and paste it inside of setup. Okay, there's a moment to beautify our code and make sure that nothing is missing. I love the sparkles. Okay, so to go over what we just copy and pasted a little bit. The first portion, we got socket.connect. Essentially, this block of code help us connect to the node signaling server. And when that's executed, we'll get a message that says connected to signaling server in the web console. And the next portion of the code essentially create a new pair in a p2p WebRTC simple pair context. By default, you can only communicate between two different pairs. So in order to add more pairs, that's a more complicated topic. You have to build a mesh, which is definitely possible. It's just more complicated. We'll stick with one-on-one for now. The basic idea of connecting two peers together is that one person has to be the host and one person has to be the guest. And inside this context, the host equals the initiator. So if we look at the simple pair documentation on GitHub, and if you scroll all the way down, there's a whole list of explanation for the API. And you can see like, a whole list of things in config that you can adjust for the new pair. And a lot to dive into. Definitely worth looking at. Okay, so just for the sake of continuing, let's scroll down and let's look at this part. This bit of code is really crucial. What it does is it tells you when the peer connection has been established. So peer on is not to be confused with socket on. Those are two different things. When you see peer on connect, what that is saying is that, hey, the connection with your remote pair has been established, which is great news. It means that you can start typing something and someone else is actually going to receive it. Okay, so the rest is detail. Let's come over and create a second pair. So I'm going to copy the URL here, and I'm going to create a new page. I'm going to again turn on my web console. So a bunch of messages popped up. Because my peer number 1 has already been on the signaling server waiting to be connected, my second pair was able to find it really fast. So if we look back on these messages, first you get connected to the signaling server, you get a pair ID, and you get connected to the pair. And when you see that line, that magic line, that's when you can start typing something to each other. So I'm going to say, hello, pair 1. And you'll see it's not integrated. Oh, it is integrated into the window, and you'll see that when you come to the other side, it's not integrated on this end yet, so we'll take care of that later. Okay, but inside the console, we do see that receive data from pair. Hello, pair 1, yay! And we can go back, hi, pair 2, and hopefully receive that too. Yes. Okay, so the data is being transmitted between the two browsers now, from browser to browser. So the next part that we can take care of is we can start integrating some of these messages to the chat interface itself. So there are two parts to this. First, I would like to fix the part where it seems like the sender message gets displayed in a window right away, but the incoming message is not being displayed. Okay, so we have to fix that. And the second part is I would like some of these messages on the status of connectivity displayed inside the interface, so that people who are using this app don't have to be opening the console to really know what's going on. So let's return to our client.js file. What I'm going to do here is first I'm going to close some of these functions. It's really dazzling when there's so much going on. Okay, when we close it, you see, wow, it's tiny. There's only 3 lines. Great. Okay, so we're gonna add a new function, and this function is going to help us deliver both the system broadcast messages as well as the messages from me to my pair to me into the window. So I'm going to call this function add message. And what I'm going to do here is dive into our send message function. And look at this line where it says message div.insert adjacent HTML. We're going to copy that whole block of code and insert it inside of the add message function. So what that does is, we're separating and making it so that every time add message is executed, it's going to take whatever data, whatever message it is, whether it's incoming message or outgoing message or broadcast message, we're going to push that into the div of our interface. So here, instead of like outgoing message, which is only restricted to one communication channel, I'm going to change this to data, and I'm also going to add that into the function itself, so that we can now go to send message. We can go to the send message function, and we can here write add message function. And inside of that add message function, we can then pass the outgoing message into the function. We're passing the parameter and have it trickle down to the actual add message function. So I'm going to give a brief explanation here. Insert message into the chat room. Okay. I also see something else here. On the line message div.scroll top, that is a line that I have previously written to essentially make the chat, make the scroll of the chat auto scroll when it sort of passes like the bottom of the page. So we're gonna copy this and put this inside the add message function. Okay, so let's format. And let's first test if this whole scheme is working. So I'm coming back, and don't forget you have to reload your page. And I'm going to reload both of them for my new code to take effect. Okay, so peer connection is established. By the way, if it's actually much safer to like load one page and make sure that it's connecting to the signaling server before reloading the other page. Sometimes when you load it together at the same time, you know, like it doesn't match up so well, and it gets a little confusing. So it's much better to do one after another. Okay, so I'm going to say testing, is this working? Great. So what's happening now is the add message function has been executed, and we have successfully passed a parameter of the outgoing message and push it into the div. Awesome. So now we just have to sort of repeat this step for other parts of this code that we want to make display onto the interface. Okay, again, I'm going to close this function. I'm going to close that one. I'm done with that for now. And I'm going to there it is. So this part, peer.onData, this is where Simple Peer detects when a data from your remote peer has been sent to you. So this incoming message variable essentially inherits the data that gets sent to Simple Peer from your remote peer, and it also converts it into a string, because by default the data is actually displayed in a unit 8 array form, so not totally readable by human. Okay, so here I'm going to create another add message function, and I'm going to this time pass incoming message into that. And here, just to be super clear, I'm going to say insert message into the chat room again. Okay, so if I did everything correctly, I should be able to come back. I'm going to reload again. And reload the second sketch. Okay, see, actually the peer is not connected yet. Interesting, so connection has failed. Let's try again. Okay, now the peer connection has established. So whenever an error message happens, just try to reload. So I'm going to say, hi peer1, and that message is going to display, but it also display on the other window, right? So I have received the incoming message and be able to pass it down into add message function. And it should work the other way around too. Sweet. Okay, this is great. The next thing I want to do is to include some of the crucial message from the system and also insert that into the chat. So the first thing I definitely want to be made visible is when the peer connection is established. So I would know when I can start typing something. So I'm gonna go over here, right under peer on connect. And I'm going to write add message and copy this variable in there. Okay, and I probably also want to do one for the error. So if it doesn't connect, if it breaks for some reason, I can also see that. So I'm going to say add message. Ooh. Okay, I'm going to make a variable here, say error message. I'm going to use a backtick here, and I'm going to say arrow sending connection to here, and a $, curly bracket, peer ID, comma, and another $, curly bracket, E for you. Okay, and so here I can just pass that error message into the function and also display it inside the console. Okay, and I would also like it if I can see that I'm available on the Signal server but have not been paired. So adding another add message here. And connect it to the signaling server. Okay, so I hope this is all going to be worth it. Let's refresh the page here. Okay, great. So, wow. So we have all the messages displaying on our interface now, so that the user can really know what's going on without having to open the console. And you can obviously go back and craft that message, however you want to make it sound right to you. But it's great that the system part worked now. So let's return to this. The next thing I want to add is a timestamp. So we know we can keep track of what message is being said when. I mean, obviously an optional feature. So what I would do is go down to add message data, and I'm going to insert these lines. I'm going to create a new variable to hold the date, the JavaScript date. So it's going to be let today equals new date. So note that this is going to be essentially loading the local desktop time of the user wherever they're logging from. So today we're going to create a new date. And I'm going to create let time, another variable, and it's going to access what's under the date. So I'm going to type today.getHours plus colon plus today.getMinutes. Yeah, they're all plural, plus colon plus today.getSeconds. Okay, just let me make sure my syntax looks right here. Okay, so now the time variable essentially would tell us the hours, the minute, and the second of, like, you know, at the moment the add message gets executed. Okay, so now all we have to do is adding the time variable into the line. So we're gonna do $time. Okay, so I'm going to come back and refresh this page. Now I'm connected to my signaling server. I think I spelled signaling with an extra L there. Okay, and I'm going to start a new pair here. I closed the one before. And now without opening the console, I can see that the peer connection is established, but also our timestamp is working. So it's displaying in the hour, minute, second format. So I'm going to say hi, peer1, and it's going to show a timestamp for that, and also vice versa. If you are connecting to a peer across the world, it's going to show your local time rather than their local time. So I hope you enjoy this, and see you in the next tutorial.